Hey everybody, today we're testing the new Raw Hammer Solid. If you like what we do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and check us out on Patreon. First impressions, the Raw Hammers offer something quite different, unique, but ultra useful. Alright, jumping in, as I mentioned in the making video, the Raw Hammers are entry-level price balls. They're intended to be downstream, either down near Arsenal or for new bowlers looking at something cheap to start with. Alright, so let's take a deeper look at the Raw Hammer Solid. It's in the formula, as I mentioned before, of the Web Tour, the IQ Tour, Radical Bonus, blah blah. It honestly, in my mind, replaces the Web Tour. It's much earlier than the hybrid version that we tested, but still arcing as you would expect. And I would say it's not a weak, soft arc. It's a medium strength arc where you almost see a second wind after it has started to make the turn. You can clearly see the trouble I had to work the ball, directing the friction right up the boards in the house cliff. It's a little too early to hit the friction so soon. Once I moved a few more boards, then it really came alive and it looked special. Just inside the second arrow to just past the third arrow, the ball just had that perfect balance of mid-lane roll and heavy arc to the pocket. I played around with angles and how much friction to the outside I could use. The Raw Hammer Black just had a knack for writing itself very effectively. It seemed to really like the 7-8-9 breakpoint. Yes, it reached the limit, not much further than that, in terms of just inside the third arrow. And that's not really surprising for the arcing nature. Ultimately, like I said, this is still an arcing motion, so trying to cover too many boards doesn't make sense for this type of ball. My two-hand test was interesting, a little different than what we saw with the hybrid. This felt like way more ball than the hybrid with my rev dominant style. I mean, way more ball. That's because of how early it was, and it's so much more pronounced when it has more time to turn over. So same spot had no chance to strike. We're talking Brooklyn's where the hybrid was flush. Then, I throw it out to the friction, it dies for a flat 7. Not unsurprisingly, I needed to move about 7 boards with my feet to find the pocket and use as much oil as possible. And we're in 5th arrow territory. Maybe righties are used to this, but as a lefty, not so much. I mean, maybe I should get used to it as a two-hander. It's not impossibly strong or anything, but it is plenty strong and angular enough for a rev-dominant style to take it, quite a bit upstream in terms of the Arsenal category. Brian was next with the Raw Hammer Black, and it also had some interesting nuances to call out. First of all, right out of the box, he had a great look pointing in the oil. Just inside of the house cliff. It may have been accidental, but it actually turned out to be a really good play. Then he looked at 6, 7, 8, and he had really good pocket hit, but also the same scatter hit as we saw with the hybrid. And I actually think this is really important, in my mind in terms of characteristics. And now he had a look at the pocket, both flush and light scatter. Again, because the ball is archy in nature, it didn't generate those high angles that more often cause flat corners from behind the head pin. So that was a really good look there. He was able to try different things as well, move in a touch, float it to the friction to get more response, go more direct, etc. I would say he had a generally above average look. So final thoughts, this ball is going to have varying uses, I believe, depending on the bowler. I feel like for the higher speed, high rev bowlers, this ball could really be a pure benchmark type of ball. Just like, folks can use the Web Tour, IQ Tour on anything, that'll be the Raw Hammer Black Solid in my mind. Early enough to blend when the bowler's speed can make up for that and still get the bigger, more explosive hit. That's mid-control category for those bowlers. For lower rev match bowlers, this might wind up in a specialty category where you want control with more closed angles.